Okay, so Greg, so this is just an introduction. Greg, where are you right now?
Right now, I am in Krakow, in Poland,
Okay,
at home.
and then what's your profession right now in Krakow?
I'm actually a real estate agent. I'm dealing with both, actually, for the last 12 years, for with both commercial and residential properties, rental, sales, um, larger, smaller transactions.
Okay, Greg. So, with regards to the commercial spaces that you had, because the goal is to have a what he calls one. I think I mentioned to you before that a shisha shop or shisha bar,
Yes.
something like that. Um, um, I'm sure there's a place there in Krakow for that. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, of course. I mean, we have shisha shops already. Actually, close to where I am right now, there are two or three even.
there
So I
there are
think
there are already three shops in Krakow.
close to where I am. I'm sure in different parts of town there may be others as well. Um, the one thing I don't know is how they operate legally, because smoking inside is no longer legal. You have to have special premises for that. In
Mm,
2010, they put in a smoking ban. But I know that they operate and they do well. There's one called Baron, not too far from where I am, and
okay.
every time I pass by there, it's quite full. So I think
Ah,
they
they're
do like
full.
11. Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you tell me more about those shops that you saw? Who are the
The ones
owners
that
and
I know also they also have food. I don't know too much about the owners. I think two of them are definitely run by Ukrainians that came here when the war started.
two
Um,
two of the shops?
the one, yes, one not too
Okay.
far from here, I think, is run by somebody from Lebanon, because they have
Somebody from Lebanon.
Lebanese food
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Mhm. And
Okay.
there's also one in town that's called Layla Lounge, and they do also like
Lily
meze
Lounge.
and tapas type food and shisha, and that's a place where a lot of expats hang out. Actually, this place called Layla Lounge. If you look them up on Facebook, you'll definitely find them, and you can. I think they have all of their photos
Maybe they
um,
have an
up on.
Instagram also.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I mean, it is something that's been popular. I remember the first place that opened was inside an Indian restaurant. That was years ago. Um, so it's definitely something that I think uh, people do enjoy, and I don't know the whole market when it comes to shisha bars, but I know that for sure the one closest to me is always full.
Okay, I'm seeing here right now, Layla Lounge. They have live bands also. Yeah.
Language
It,
meetups and bingo, and they try to engage with the community. So I think that's the way that's where they got their base of expats. They are in the old town. Well, the old town. They're in the Jewish quarter in Krakow.
Jewish Quarter. Okay. I
Mhm.
think the central portion is much more popular, right?
I mean, it depends. The Jewish Quarter is also super popular. It's one of those. It has a very different feel to the area around the main square. It's less commercial, so you get a little bit more of an authentic feel. It's not just tourists.
Okay.
Krakow is a city, of almost 200,000 students, and a lot of them don't hang out in the city center because it's more expensive. It tailors to people that come from abroad. They tend to hang out also on the other side of the river, which has become quite a popular neighborhood now in Old Podgórze, or close to Schindler's Factory Museum, and that's on the other side from the Jewish quarter. So we have, Krakow used to be just the city center around the main square, but in the last 10 years, it's really spread out. There's a section where there's museums, there's a part that is just the old town with the cafes and all of that around the main square. But of course,
Yeah.
there the rents tend to be much higher. Um, it's gotten, and it's hard to find like a decent space. After COVID, there was a period of time where some businesses didn't make it, and people took over those spaces with new, fresh ideas, with
Yes.
wallets that still had money in them, because
Yes.
some businesses were really hurt by that. Even the government contributions didn't really help them that much. So, with regards to space, also like you mentioned, we are a seasonal city, so when it gets warm, actually this coming weekend, it's going to be 23 degrees Celsius, and yesterday it was snowing. So we see quite extreme differences today, in this time of the year. But in the summer, everybody's outside. So there's beer gardens, there's places along the river that are quite popular as well. On the
Yes.
other side of the river from the old town, and there's a very popular venue in an abandoned hotel. If you've been to Budapest, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's that concept of like a ruin bar, but it's very, very large. It's called Forum. Um, so it's really quite spread out. It depends which scene you're looking for. If you're looking just around the main square, then you're dealing mainly with foreign tourists, and the largest number of foreign tourists in Krakow come from Western Europe, from Germany, from England. There's a period where people from the United States come over that have some sort of, either they're doing a tour of Europe, or they have maybe some ancestry here. In the summer in the Jewish quarter, there's a lot of people coming from Israel because we have a Jewish festival that lasts a week
Okay.
long. It finishes with a very large concert in the heart of the Jewish quarter. So it's really, the city's the cultural capital of Poland. So it's a little bit different with regards to what it provides in Warsaw. It's always been, this
Yeah.
this touristic sort of mecca. Um, but you don't necessarily have to be right on the street that you sent me, Florianska, to get
Yes.
business, because people these days they'll find you if you have a good product. Um, and sometimes people avoid me. I myself rarely go to Florianska because it's just full of it's full of tourists.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
um, it's a place where locals maybe not avoid, but it's not like a go-to. A lot of people that live in Krakow would rather go to the Jewish quarter when they have a little bit of free time. It's a little bit more rundown, so it has more of that authentic feel. Um, yeah, so I mean that's kind of, even if you're on this side of the river, we currently where I am, which is across from the Jewish quarter, across the river,
Okay.
there's a big area. The area I'm surrounded basically by business parks, and there's a lot of student accommodation here. Currently, about 150 meters from where I live, and close to that other shisha bar I had told you about, they're currently building a private student dorm for 1,000 beds, and there's already one that's in existence there that has 700 beds. These are international students that come to study medicine. They come to study law here because there's two universities that teach, actually three, that have classes in English as well. Erasmus students
Yes.
come to Krakow. It's quite a popular destination, and a lot of them, this new generation, they're looking for more authenticity than just to go to where everything is happening. They look kind of for the things that are underground that maybe not everybody knows about. Um, on the main square, you get things like wax museums, and you get just your regular type of business that you would have anywhere, like in Prague and Budapest. You move a little
Yes.
bit away, and then you start to have some of the more quality stuff. We have a Michelin starred restaurant in Krakow. It has 2 stars, and that's actually in the Jewish quarter. So
Okay.
it's completely off the beaten path, but it attracts people just because of the Michelin guide, and there's a lot of nice wine bars in that area. So it's more of a laid back, chilled vibe than what I would say is on the main square. I think also the average age, you would get a of a more mature crowd close to the main square and the city
Yeah.
center. Uh, um, in Kazimierz, in the Jewish Quarter, you're probably looking at, people that are getting, 18 to 40, 45 maybe, that age bracket.
Just you met you sh I remember you gave me a picture, two pictures of the bars that are being sold there,
Yeah,
and I think we discussed it that it's not gonna be ideal for shisha bar.
yeah.
Um, is there any other place that's in your mind that's gonna be a good place for a shisha bar? That's
I think
not the
there's.
that's
Mhm.
good for for that kind of business.
I think I was thinking already. I have to go maybe physically walk around a little bit and see where the spaces are, because there's, I think, a few factors that you'll need to think about. Some of the bars with the largest um, crowds in the summer are really small in the winter. They just have a small bar with coffee and a bathroom, and then the summer they have a big garden, because that's how the space is divided. Um, so I was thinking maybe something that can provide both indoor and outdoor for you guys. I don't know how. I'm trying to think who I can ask if it is possible. I don't think it would be impossible, but there's weird laws about smoking shisha outside. You can smoke cigarettes out, but in Amsterdam, for example, you can smoke marijuana inside and you can't smoke it outside, but you can't smoke cigarettes inside, but you can smoke them outside. So sometimes there's, strange laws by the sanitation. So we would have to ask, because I don't
That's
recall
weird,
ever
though.
seeing.
That's
It is. It's
weird.
very. Um, I learned this not too long ago. Somebody was telling me about these funny laws, and they had mentioned Amsterdam. Yeah, you're not allowed to just walk around with, the city smoking. They can only do it in coffee shops. But yeah, so I would have to ask, because it also depends on the type of neighbors you have upstairs. So uh, in Krakow, we've noticed the trend now. For the past 10 years, a lot of the bars and places where, even with smoking, were in the basements. They just had very strong ventilation systems. Now we see this trend after COVID. People want to be outside, actually, and a lot of places are opening at street level, not below.
Mm,
A lot of the nightclubs here,
yeah.
they're all underground. Um,
Okay.
that trend is changing, but it's also, but they're getting smaller, because the rents on the ground floor levels are quite expensive. They're somewhere from, depending on the building, from 1 to 200 zloty per square meter, which is quite a lot. Um,
Okay.
you know, to make a good profit on. So the final and third thing is whether, what kind of neighbors you have upstairs, because if there's going to be a family with kids, you're going to get complaints all the time. So it does depend, I think, also who lives in the building, if it's a commercial building or.
Oh, so it's like it's not a commercial building, it's a residential building, and then the commercial stores are downstairs. Is it?
Quite often, yes, or you have a hotel upstairs. There's less and less actual people living in the old town, because it has become so touristic. But normally, yes, you'll have upstairs. You'll either have a hotel or some sort of office building, retail, or an apartment block. And I think that will, depending on how the space is, um, how the ventilation is, that will
Yeah.
also be a factor, right? I don't know what the requirements are when you have that. When they introduced the no smoking laws, you were allowed to have a smoking room, but there were specific requirements, like you couldn't pass through the smoking room to get to the bathroom, or there couldn't be an emergency exit. You couldn't pass through a smoking room to get to the bar, for example. It had to be in a separate space with its own ventilation. Those were the requirements back then.
Yes.
Um, I don't know how that's changed. And when you're getting your liquor license, when you're applying here in Krakow, you apply for three. for beer, then for wine, and then for hard liquors. I don't know what the requirement is for smoking now, because it's quite a gray area. Um,
Okay.
some places still have smoking, and I know the shisha bars, they don't. I don't know if it's the amount of nicotine or what the requirement is
Mm. Yeah.
for you to be able to just have it out in the open and not in a separate room. So
Okay.
that's something I would have to ask someone about in a discreet way, so that that they don't think that you're kind of come in and make competition for them, because sometimes people are not that ready and willing to provide with information. But these places exist, so it's not like it's something that's illegal. It's definitely legal. It's just a matter of figuring out um, what the requirements are, so that you have, when you finish the space, you rent a space, so that you don't have a negative information from sanitation afterwards, that you can't have this type of
Yes.
business in this space.
Yeah, sure. Um, so with regards to the classical rents that they have, let's say if you have a 300 square meters area,
Hmm.
that's kind of big, right? Uh,
300 square meters.
or maybe 150 is the,
I think I was involved in a bar a few years ago, and we had around 100, but 100 square meters could fit about up to 50 people, maybe 60 people
wow,
comfortably.
wow.
After that, it starts getting a little bit, a little bit tight, because you need a space for
Yes,
the bar. The bartenders need a certain amount of space to move behind the bar, the bathroom, just the
yes,
circulation of air. When we had a party where we had almost 100 people, you couldn't breathe. It was, in one of these basements. So even after we opened all the windows, it was just very uncomfortable. So it's just a matter of exchange of air, and if it was a ground floor space, that would be ideal, with some sort of windows, or somewhere where you can vent, the smoke air out as well, without it going onto the street. You definitely will have more restrictions in the old town, because some of the buildings are in the historical society, and you won't be able to make alterations. So that's something that you have to take into effect. That if you want to change the facade or anything like that, you may have to apply for a special permit before the city allows you to change the look of the building. And sometimes it might be a negative, um, a negative answer. Depending, we've had a few changes of the conservator in Krakow recently. We had a lady before who was very difficult, and it was hard to get anything passed. The guy now, he's a little bit more lenient. Um, so it's easier, but the governments change all the time, so we never know who the next person might be. Once you're in, then they can't really touch you, but it's changing. Like, you might need to put in ventilation to get the smoke out, so you have to make sure that there's a space to do it, that it's not interfering, or that somebody's not complaining that it's blowing out onto the street. I don't think it can blow out onto the street. It might be a situation like with restaurants, where there's a certain amount of meters from the building or from a window where the exhaust needs to be, and sometimes that's to
yes,
the roof. So when you have a 5-story building, it's extra cost getting the pipe all the way to the top. But it
yes.
really depends on the space. It'll be a case by case situation, because each space is a little bit different, especially in these old buildings. Sometimes you knock down through a wall and you don't know what's there. So it's
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes.
these are cellars from the 15th century normally, in the old town.
With regards to this, I'm sure, because you mentioned that there is a Lebanese shisha shop over there, which is good. That's
Yeah.
a good sign. That's a good sign. At least there's already one, and it's working well. Plus, there are two more that's operated by Ukrainians, which is good.
Yes.
Um, okay.
And most of
That's
them are actually, when I think about it, they are the first floor, or the place in here where there's a lot of students. It's called Baron, Baron. and it's a restaurant with like with this with shisha. The other one, let me check 1 second on my computer. It's not far from here. What the name is? Mm. The other one is called Galaxy Hookah, and that's
Galaxy
on
Hookah.
Galaxy Hookah. Yeah,
Galaxy Hookah. Okay. Okay, I'm checking it now. Galaxy
and those are
Hookah.
two that I just know off, the top of my head. There's probably more or places that are restaurants, some Turkish places. I know an Indian place that used to have. I don't know if they still have shisha there, but again, if these places are doing it, then I don't think it's impossible. Just you want to get all the details about how it's done here, so you don't have any issues along the way legally with any requirements from the government to get all your licensing in place before you open.
Yeah. Well, um, the rent prices usually are, let's say if you have 150 square meters,
Hmm.
or 100 square meters, what's the usual range? I think the one that you showed me, that's around 10,000 zloty per 10,000 to 12,000 zloty per month.
Per month, yes, but those spaces were underground, so anything that would be above is going to be, of course, ground floor will be premium. um, But when you get up to the first floor, sometimes you're able to find something in the range of, I would say, 80 zloty per square meter. So it's a little bit
Okay.
cheaper because you can't do every type of business up there. If you want, on the first floor, it'll be much harder to install a full kitchen than on the ground floor. The floors can't, hold the, if you have half products, if you had like pitas and some sort of dips and finger food, that's one thing. But if you wanted to have heavy cooking, it might be impossible because you also need two entrances to a commercial space when you have a restaurant, one for clean, one for dirty tracts.
Yes. Yes.
And not all spaces will, especially on on the ground floor, is okay, but on the first floor, not all spaces will be able to accommodate that need, and sometimes they are also not designated as sometimes you just have office space usage that is hard to change into commercial retail. Um, because there's sometimes an overhead, like overhead. There's the general government. Each space has its own designation in the land register, whether it's commercial or residential, etc. So you can't open a restaurant in an apartment. Basically, people have tried because it was, a good space, but it's tricky business, and you don't want to end up getting fined. So, um, it also
Yes.
depends on what is available in those spaces. But yeah, you definitely pay less for like a first floor space um, than the ground floor, and of course the basements also will be cheaper. But again, they you're kind of stuck in that basement. It becomes an issue of air circulation. There have been basement bars with smoking spaces. I know a few nightclubs that have an area for smoking. It's in, the whole club is in the basement, but the smoking area is in a separate room with a little window or with a strong exhaust system. So it's all doable. Um,
Mm.
but I would have to have a look at what spaces are available and what would be something that would work for this type of business. Because on the one side, you also want to be, I don't know how you guys are with socials and etc. and all of that stuff, but it's always nice to have your logo in the window and people can see walking by, etc. But
Yeah,
some of
that's
these
true.
spaces are slightly cheaper. They're sometimes in the back of a building. Some buildings have a courtyard and a separate entrance in the back that you don't see off the street, and those are also cheaper. But then all you need is a little bit better marketing so people can find you, because they won't be able to see right off the street, or
Yes.
you'll have a small logo on the street. We also have something in the old town because it's a UNESCO protected area. The amount of space you can use for marketing on the windows is also
It's limited,
is
right?
also good. Hmm?
It's the marketing that you have for the old town's limited because of the it's
Yeah, you can only have, I think, up to 10% of the window area can be like a marketing campaign.
um, okay. You mentioned that there's some they're constructing new places right now, especially in accommodating new for the students. Are there any new places that's on the rise in Krakow right now? And if if you think Krakow is not a good place anymore, is there another place that you have in mind that's rising?
I mean, to be honest, Krakow was a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to tourism. It's been well known for a long time, but there are other Polish cities. Aside from Warsaw, Wrocław is been doing quite well. It's in the west, closer to the German border, slightly smaller
Okay.
than Krakow, but it has a really nice old town as well, and it's seen a lot of tourism come in recently. Poznan, which is closer to the Berlin
I heard
border.
about Poznan. I heard about
Yeah,
Poznan. What about Poznan?
Poznan is nice. It's a half a million, more or less, people living there.
Not as
Um,
many as Krakow.
Not as many. It's like a third of the size smaller. Because
Mm,
Krakow on a daily basis with students and tourists is probably over 1 million. Poznan is like probably 500,000 plus or minus people. So let's say half the size. Gdańsk is also quite very popular, especially with people from Scandinavia because they can fly over from Sweden, from Norway. It's on the north shore. That's really popular in the summer months because it's a beach town. Um, and I guess
yes.
those are Silesia has also been Katowice, which is not far from Krakow. It's 80 kilometers. Has also been quite popular. All of these cities are also student cities, so you have large student populations in each one of them, and they provide a slightly different um, demographic depending on where Ryanair flies, Wizz Air flies, EasyJet flies, because those are usually the airlines that people come to city breaks. They're all popular for city breaks. Most Polish cities are. Um, because you can fly over from England for 2 hours you're here, and it's much cheaper than going to London or Manchester. So, um, where in Krakow you have a lot of ideas that have already been implemented. Some of these other cities have maybe one or two shisha bars, and there may be a larger possibility to do something. Um, and the retail prices are a little bit cheaper than they are here. Krakow is
Mm,
kind of the front runner in terms of tourism in Poland in general. Warsaw, I guess, is a different type of tourist. Warsaw is business tourists, so it's more of the financial capital. It's also three times bigger than Krakow. So um, there's always potential in Warsaw, but it's a matter of finding a niche in the market where you're not competing with somebody directly. Um, but we find that even in tough times, Krakow still dealt well with somehow the tourists still made it here even during COVID, mainly local tourists, but there were still people coming for the weekends, walking around with their kids, etc., even when the restaurants were closed. Um, so yeah, but it would
mm,
be what you're looking for, I guess, a case by case basis. We have a lot of student housing going up now
yeah.
where our office blocks are. It's very decentralized. There's a number of office parks throughout the
Mm.
city. They're not really like all in one area.
So
Um,
basically, Krakow is um, I think it's progressing more. It's not stagnant. It's
yeah,
going up.
yeah. The only issue that we have in the city at the moment is that because it's so old, there's nowhere to build anymore. So developers are having a hard time finding new plots to expand. The city needs to work on that because it's creating a bubble where the property prices are going up for sales and rental because there's no inventory or nowhere to build the inventory at the moment. And there's a few places that they would have to
Well,
rezone the area,
what's
the
to know? What's
city.
keeping Krakow um not expanding a lot more or faster? Is it a central place and then surrounded by other villages? What's the no?
Basically, yeah, we have villages all around, and actually to the south we have Wieliczka, which is where the salt mines are. To the southwest, there's a smaller city like of 40,000. So the borders have nowhere really to expand. To the west, we have the airport. So the whole area around the airport is really hard to build. It's quite hilly. And to the east, we have a steel mill, so it's industrial. So that doesn't
Mm,
really leave a lot of space to expand the city. And anything that's inside gets a lot of pushback from people that don't really want it to change. They don't want them to more modernize certain parts. Um, it's a little bit tough with that regard. Yeah, it's surrounded by other stuff, so it really has no direction to go. Or if there is a direction, it's an area close to the river that's prone to flooding. So they have to figure something out, but it probably will be more of a process. It'll take a few years for sure. They were
okay.
trying to zone a part of a big empty site for some high rises recently, and there were protests that people don't want there to be high rises. It's a historic city. Those types of buildings don't belong here. So it's a lot of back and forth.
Okay. Greg, I only have 5 minutes left. I just want
Mhm, no
to
problem.
close this one. Maybe we could schedule a second one or third one. Uh,
Hmm.
with regards to the kind of places that, if ever Krakow is not an option, I think I asked this one a long time, a while ago. Mm, is there another place that is, that you would recommend? Any other
I've
place?
heard a lot of good things about it's spelled Rocklaw, I guess, in English. In Polish,
Rocklaw.
it's Wrocław. Yeah.
Okay, Rocklaw.
It's a city that has 650,000 people, plus
Okay,
tourists, students. It's a very large student population. It's very well connected because it has a motorway going directly to Germany. To the south is
okay,
Prague. It has an international airport. Um, in general, the aesthetic of the city is very nice. It's been rebuilt after the war. The laws with regards to restrictions, especially in the city center, it has a square that's very close to Krakow Square in size. Um, but you don't have the restrictions of UNESCO because Wrocław is not a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it was rebuilt from rubble. So the buildings are
okay.
actually
Yeah,
50
no,
years old.
so that's Rocklaw also.
It looks old and it's beautiful, but it's not old enough for them to put those restrictions on. Much easier to tear down a wall, do whatever you need in order to set up a business, and the rents are lower. I would say they're probably 15% lower than in
Okay,
Krakow. And most of the successful restaurants that are here have a second location there as well.
okay,
And
Rocklaw.
sometimes their location there is bigger than the one here because the buildings there are you're able to build a larger space. Here, quite often in the old town, the buildings are only a few meters wide, so it's hard. You're very restricted as to the size of a space that you can do. You can only sometimes do
How
up
far
and
is
down.
sorry to ask that. How far is Rocklaw to Krakow?
It's a 3 hour drive, 3 hour car
Okay,
drive.
okay,
It's a 3 hour bus ride as well. Depends how fast you drive.
okay. Well, thank you very much, Greg. It's
Problem.
really, maybe there's a way. I do plan to visit Krakow this, maybe let uh fourth week of April until
Mhm,
May. I do have plans to go over there, and then some of our business partners are asking me about this because they're planning to move their business. I'm here in Kuwait right now. They're planning to
mhm.
branch out their business from Kuwait to uh, to Europe,
Poland. Mhm.
so Poland, yeah. So just thinking about it.
Well,
I have to
if
get
you're,
back to
I'd
you.
be more than happy to show you around. It's always a little bit different when you're on the ground walking around. It's a very walkable city. Um, Yeah, and it's best to see on foot. Then you get a sense of, yes, I can feel this business being in this location and not in this location, because of the types of people on the street, the architecture, uh, and then every individual space. Sometimes it might be in a great location, but the actual space is so, or it's difficult, has a hard shape. So it's really easiest if you are here. But when you have your trip planned, then we'll plan to meet, and I'll show you around a little bit as well.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, 2 minutes left. Um, can you schedule this again? Maybe next time. Maybe
Sure,
to get
sure.
some.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you very much, Greg. Have a nice day.
no problem. Thank you as well. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.